Fascinated by freaky Führer facts? You've come to the right place. Here are 50 insane facts about Hitler. Believe us, some of the later ones seem almost too crazy to be true. Fact 1. Many people know that Adolf Hitler was a failed art student before becoming a dictator. But fewer people know that he did so badly during his second application to college that he wasn't even allowed to sit through the entrance exams. Fact 2. Adolf Hitler had a pet German Shepherd named Blondie that was given him as a puppy by a member of the Nazi Party. When the Führer moved to his hidden bunker toward the end of the war, Blondie traveled with him and even met the same fate via cyanide capsule to avoid his beloved Pooch falling into the hands of the Soviets. Fact 3. Hitler was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize in 1939, though this was most likely meant as a backhanded compliment by the Swedish legislator who proposed the nomination. Because the previous German recipient of the Peace Prize, Karl von Ossietzky, in 1935, was a journalist critical of the Nazi Party, Hitler had already banned the award from being given to any German, resulting in 3 other Germans needing to decline peace prizes during the time of the Third Reich. Fact 4. Hitler avoided the consumption of meat, as well as smoking and drinking alcohol, but was a known user of several hard drugs such as cocaine and opiates. Perhaps in an effort to follow their leader, it was common practice for Nazi soldiers to take doses of crystal meth before battle, a twist on the old stories of the Germanic berserkers, warriors who would enter a chemically altered state and fight as though they were possessed by animal spirits on the battlefield. Some even speculate that Hitler was tweaking on methamphetamine during the 1936 Olympic Games, and a video of Hitler freaking out and fidgeting in the stands briefly went viral in 2022 after being featured on the Joe Rogan Experience. Fact 5. It's believed by some historians that Hitler impregnated a French teenager during his service in World War I, though the identity of the child was never confirmed. Any claims of parentage would likely be wild speculation, but it'd certainly make for an exciting episode of Maury. Fact 6. Though Hitler was born in Austria, he became a German nationalist from a young age, using the Heil greeting among his peers. He would go on to change his nationality and spend the rest of his life as a German citizen. Austria is quite likely happy that he's associated more with their neighbors than them. Fact 7. Hitler's father, Alois Hitler, was born with the surname Schicklgruber, but changed it later in life to match his stepfather, Johann Georg Heidler. For unknown reasons, the spelling of Heidler was changed to Hitler, but either way, the Führer's name might have been Adolf Schicklgruber, though we're not sure how that would have caught on as a charismatic dictator with such an unwieldy name. Fact 8. Hitler blamed the German defeat during World War I on communism, the entire economic system which he believed was a conspiracy perpetrated by a shadowy league of Jewish people. This conspiracy continues to exist today, with the phrase cultural Marxism or cultural Bolshevism often being a coded reference to it among certain fringe far-right organizations and movements. Hitler's legacy of virulent anti-Semitism is sadly still alive and well. Fact 9. A 21st century art critic once reviewed Hitler's paintings without being told who the original artist was. While the critic said the paintings were technically competent, the human figures that Hitler painted were lifeless, and this indicated a lack of interest in the lives of other people. Given Hitler and his men extinguished millions of those lives with seemingly no remorse, the critic might have been onto something there. Fact 10. Hitler was well known for his thoughts on eugenics and belief in the chosen Aryan race. But the features of his own skull were once described by a German professor of phrenology as follows: bad race, mongrel, low receding forehead, ugly nose, broad cheekbones, small eyes, and dark hair. Phrenology, for the record, is a completely bunk pseudoscience, popular in early racist and eugenicist movements. There's no honor among bigots, it seems. Fact 11. After being kicked out of art school in December of 1909, Hitler had to resort to living inside a homeless shelter in Vienna. He was only able to recover financially when his father's inheritance money bailed him out. Fact 12. Carl Jung, a famous Swiss psychiatrist and psychologist, who along with Sigmund Freud is considered to be one of the fathers of the psychological school of psychoanalysis, believed that Hitler had essentially feminine instinct when it came to the quality and style of his handwriting. The study of handwriting analysis doesn't hold the water it used to, but it's a strange and interesting thought nonetheless. Fact 13. Hitler would sometimes show graphic images of animals being slaughtered before dinner parties in order to discourage his guests from eating meat. It's believed that he witnessed an autopsy of a farm animal as a child and never wanted to consume meat again. This makes it extra bizarre that he'd spend the rest of his life treating human beings like livestock for the slaughter. Fact 14. The Führer often made significant decisions in governing Germany without consulting any of his advisors. Since much of Hitler's power was autocratic, those decisions were rarely questioned or walked back. And if you disputed Hitler's choices, especially closer to the end of his reign, you would likely find yourself up against the firing wall for treason. Fact 15. The death of Adolf Hitler was announced to the public on May 1, 1945, the same day of the month that Osama bin Laden's death was announced in 2011. A great month for the deaths of incredibly dangerous men, it seems. Fact 16. In all of the elections he ran in prior to 1933, Hitler never received the popular vote, and the highest amount of support that the Nazi Party was able to obtain was around 37%. It's a disturbing fact that apathy for Hitler's bigoted and authoritarian policies was just as, if not more responsible for his rise to power than active support for them. Fact 17. The infamous toothbrush mustache that's associated with Hitler is actually a holdover from his service in World War I, as the shorter facial hair made it easier to wear a gas mask. Before that, Hitler's mustache had been done in the full Kaiser style. British actor and comedian Charlie Chaplin wasn't pleased with the similarity to his own toothbrush stash, but managed to turn lemons into lemonade by lampooning Hitler in his famed 1940 satire, The Great Dictator. Fact 18. Hitler's parents were second cousins, and 3 out of his 5 siblings died in childbirth, possibly due to complications resulting from inbreeding. It's a terrible shame for all of us that Adolf wasn't one of them. Fact 19. Hitler was known to whistle tunes to himself, including the tune of When You Wish Upon a Star from Disney's Pinocchio. We're sorry to anyone who had that song ruined for them by this fact. Strangely, the legacy of Hitler and Disney have become forever tied. Hitler believed that Disney's breakout feature hit Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was one of the greatest movies ever made. There have been multiple claims that Walt Disney himself was a Nazi sympathizer, with dubious evidence both for and against. The most likely origin of the theory was that Walt Disney did once give leading Nazi propaganda filmmaker Leni Riefenstahl, most famous for creating Triumph of the Will, a tour around Walt Disney Studios in 1938. Fact 20. There's only one recording of Hitler's ordinary speaking voice done in secret. This was due to the fact that Hitler supposedly hated the sound of his voice when not delivered in a prepared speech. Fact 21. Hitler distributed at least 50 blow-up dolls modeled after blonde-haired, blue-eyed women among his soldiers as a preventative measure against STDs. The soldiers didn't want to take the dolls and refused to carry them into battle for fear the assets might be seized by the Allies, humiliating the German army. Joke's on them, of course, because all of us know now, and yes, that's pretty humiliating. Fact 22. On D-Day, Hitler slept through the storming of the beach of Normandy and was reluctant to deploy troops when he awoke, thinking the Allies must have been pulling some kind of trick. Imagine hitting the snooze button while experiencing one of the most damning defeats of the entire war. If that's not an argument for waking up early, we don't know what is. Fact 23. It's believed that Theodor Morell, Hitler's personal physician, would inject him with a variety of testosterone-enhancing drugs before he spent the night with his mistress Eva Braun. These included a selection of drugs derived from the genitals of juvenile bulls. Fact 24. British spies once planned to use research into hormone therapy to feminize Hitler using estrogen. While poison would have been detected by Hitler's tasters, who were all young women, estrogen would have affected the dictator more subtly and supposedly made him more like his docile sister, Paula. Like many of the more unusual schemes of British intelligence, it was not put into action. Fact 25. Over the course of his life, Hitler's hatred for the religion of Christianity grew to a boiling point, calling it a religion for slaves and disparaging it for its meekness. In contrast, he was won over by the religious traditions of Japan as well as the ideals found within Islam. Fact 26. During his service in the German army in World War I, Hitler was injured in a mustard gas attack and spent the rest of the war recovering from the resulting blindness. Doctors at the time believed many of his symptoms were caused by his altered mental state after the war. Fact 27. A friend of Adolf Hitler, Ernst Homstangl, studied at Harvard and gave Hitler the idea for the Sieg Heil chant and salute from observing the cheerleaders at American football games. Fact 28. In 1993, Hitler was baptized by the Mormon Church in an effort to include all human beings who had ever lived on Earth in their traditions. The same was also done for the infamous Vlad the Impaler, who surprisingly was a real historical figure who served as a basis for Dracula. Fact 29. Hitler was believed by some historians to have had severe health problems toward the end of his life, including the telltale full-body shakes caused by Parkinson's disease. While the Führer and the rest of the Nazi government always tried to project a strong image, Hitler likely suffered from lapses in memory and judgment as well. Fact 30. Hitler's administration held the German Jewish community financially responsible for the destruction of property and the loss of life that occurred on Kristallnacht. He not only pushed the propaganda that led to the racialized violence, but directly benefited from it in a financial sense. Fact 31. Time magazine selected Adolf Hitler as Person of the Year back in 1938 because it was believed that Chamberlain's policy of appeasement toward him would have prevented another world war. The choice turned out to be a mistake, given that Hitler continued to pursue his goals of German expansion. Fact 32. The famous British World War II song, "Hitler Has Only Got One Ball," might have been based in fact, as Hitler was found to have lived with cryptorchidism, a condition where one of the testicles does not descend from the body. Technically, there were two, but by all appearances, well, you get the idea. Fact 33. Hitler refused to undress for medical examinations and nearly all other circumstance. His recorded weight of around 155 pounds was only the closest estimate because the weight of his clothing had to be factored in. Fact 34. A historical biographer named Volker Ulrich discovered that Hitler had been very loose with his personal funds, spending thousands on fancy clothes and other luxury goods. Fact 35. When Hitler came into power, he made himself free of taxes and thus was able to avoid the enormous amount of tax debt that he had been dodging for years. He also never declared his income, despite the fact that he was undoubtedly making millions from his book sales and salaries. Fact 36. Hitler was a known chocoholic and would consume at least 2 pounds of the confectionery every day. Ironically, toward the end of the war, the Third Reich would hand out chocolate and other candy as a recruitment method to bring in teenage conscripts. Fact 37. Hitler kept a picture of his mother on his person ever since her death in 1907, all the way up to his fateful days in the bunker. Fact 38. Hitler never personally visited any of the concentration camps during the war, even though he had personally authorized all the killings and the ethnic cleansing that took place there. Fact 39. According to a German newspaper, in 1894, a 4-year-old Hitler was rescued from drowning in a freezing river by a priest named Johann Kuberger. This incident initially made the young boy want to become a priest when he got older. If only we lived in that timeline. Fact 40. While practicing his speeches, Hitler took photographs of himself in dramatic poses as a way of psyching himself up. Who knew a tyrannical dictator could also be a selfie fanatic? Fact 41. The development of the Volkswagen Beetle was commissioned by Adolf Hitler in the 1930s as a car that would bring joy to the German people. He laid the cornerstone of the original Volkswagen factory himself. So, if it weren't for Hitler, we wouldn't have had Herbie the Love Bug. Truly, he was history's most awful monster. Fact 42. Hitler seemed creepily obsessed with his half-niece, Angel Maria Raubel, who was also known by her nickname Gaily. Hitler kept Gaily inside her apartment and forbade her from having any friendships or relationships, and she would later die a tragic and mysterious death from a gunshot wound caused by Hitler's own Walther pistol. Hitler was immediately ruled out as a suspect by the authorities at the time, but historians have argued about the possibility of Hitler killing his own half-niece in a jealous rage for decades since. Fact 43. William Patrick Hitler was the name of Adolf Hitler's nephew who fought for the Allies. Apparently, Willie H. was tired of all the jobs that old Uncle Adolf kept giving him, so he ran away to the US and rebelled against his family name. And considering how Hitler treated his half-niece, who could blame his nephew for getting out of Dodge before things started getting equally creepy? Fact 44. Hitler suffered from ailurophobia, which meant that he was afraid of cats, a trait supposedly shared by fellow authoritarian leaders Benito Mussolini, Genghis Khan, and Napoleon Bonaparte. Fact 45. In a shockingly rare showing of humanitarian concern from Hitler, the Führer was the first European leader to ban the operation of human zoos in his country. And yes, human zoos were indeed a common practice in Europe, as horrifically barbaric as it sounds. Fact 46. Newlywed couples in Nazi Germany were given a copy of Hitler's manifesto Mein Kampf for free after they tied the knot. And the award for most poorly aged wedding gift goes to… Fact 47. The first ballistic missile introduced into warfare, the V-2 rocket, was developed under Hitler's regime. Fact 48. Hitler planned to build a grim museum that would house all of the artifacts from the races his policies of ethnic cleansing would make extinct. Fact 49. After his first failed coup, the Beer Hall Putsch, Adolf Hitler spent 5 years in German prison. That's where he wrote Mein Kampf. Fact 50. Edward Bloch, a Jewish doctor who was the Hitler family physician during Adolf's youth, was spared the horrors of the concentration camps, as Hitler believed him to be a, quote, noble Jew, and went as far as to say, if all the Jewish people were like Bloch, there would be no Jewish question. It's less a shocking display of empathy for an evil man and more a sign that he was a truly repulsive hypocrite all the way down. Now watch Hitler's plans for the world if he won, or watch this video instead.